Hi everyone and welcome. So today I wanted to show you the very first steps in what I'm planning uh, to be a first-person shooter in the FPS built on Unity, essentially. Um, I still don't know exactly what path I'm going to take with this FPS, so I don't know exactly what this FPS is going to become. My initial plan was to make it a survival horror FPS, um, but I am still in doubt, to be honest. Okay, so what I decided to do is I decided to start this series, show you how I build it, roughly step by step, do some devlogs, see where it takes us. See where it goes. I might only end up showing you, like um, only parts of it, in the sense that I might not show you the whole game because I might decide only to make a first-person shooter um, controller. I might decide to make implement AI. I might decide to make it a full game. I don't know. I don't know at this stage. So as of now, I'm just going to show you what I have. So in the last couple of days, I worked on this first-person controller, um, and don't mind the animations right now. That those are they're just a placeholder basically. Um, and but what we have is essentially, um, as you can see in the hierarchy also, we've got our first person controller that has the main camera, and it has a secondary camera on this component that renders just the gun. Um, and this, I will show you what it allows us to do. It allows us to avoid clipping, so very basic. As you can see, when I get close to the wall, we don't get any clipping because the gun is getting rendered on top of the wall. So that's great. Um, sure, there can be more advanced ways to do it, but this is the most basic and most efficient way. We actually have um, a basic script that handles movement, as you can see. And yeah, rotation, yeah, any kind of movement, camera rotation. Um, yeah, so the basic controller stuff. I use a character controller, so not a rigid body, mainly because I want to have higher accuracy. I don't want to deal a lot with adjusting physics parameters, so I want to have high accuracy for an FPS controller. So I use the character controller, which allows me to have that. And then I've got the FPS inventory, and this is something I'm currently developing. I've never done an inventory before, so it's really uncharted waters for me. Uh, and I already made mistakes on the way, and I realized I had to, reverse, go back, scrap everything, redo it. But I'm learning, and I'm trying to see what's the best approach here. So I want to make basically what I'm trying to make is a modular inventory. So basically, there is a setup, which is the inventory takes primary, secondary, tertiary weapons, and then objects, essentially. Okay, and you can decide how many primary weapons your player is gonna like how big is gonna, how many slots you're gonna have in the primary weapons for the primary weapons, for the secondary, for the tertiary, and for the objects. Now, usually, what you're gonna put in your primary weapons are rifles and shotguns, and sniper rifles, whatever, light machine guns, stuff like that. In secondary weapons, you're gonna have mainly pistols. Um, in tertiary weapons, you're mainly going to have explosives. I put a melee here just because I didn't know where else to put it. So to be honest, you can do whatever you want. You can create these scriptable objects and you can place them wherever you want as long as they are weapons. Okay. I will show you what I mean by this in a second. And then you got objects, and objects are essentially they can be anything. They can be a torch. They can be like I don't know, like, yeah, if your guy's holding a rock, it's gonna be a rock. So you can have maybe this is your kind of bag. If you're playing an RPG and you need some space in the bag, you're gonna have five objects, space for five objects, let's say, stuff like that. Now, keep in mind, this is not aimed to be an RPG inventory. Okay, this is a much more basic inventory setup for first-person shooters, so for classic FPS games. Let me show you a few more things. Yeah, so as you can see, it's a very basic setup. Basically, we have an abstract class which is hands, and then we have two subclasses which are weapon and object. So these two classes derive from hands, and then we have melee weapon, gun, and explosive, which derive from weapon. Okay, and these are they basically they are scriptable objects. So what I can do with these is I can easily go press right mouse click, go to create FPS hands weapons, and I can I can choose explosive, gun, or melee weapon. Say if I choose gun, I'm presented with a new scriptable object, and I can give my gun a prefab, reposition my gun, so when it's spawned in the scene, it's at a good position compared to my face, basically, to the face of my FPS character. The hands layer is the layer that gets basically rendered on top of the environment to avoid clipping, and we got some hit damage, and there will be many more variables later on. So this is roughly how it works. So when I press play, you can see that below the hands root, we get everything spawned, 3 guns spawned, but only one actives, which is the main one. It's the first gun in the hierarchy. That is the one that is getting activated essentially. All the others are off, but they still are in the scene because I want to avoid instantiating and destroying guns. If there is a gun in the scene, it's got to be there. It's just going to be activated or deactivated. To avoid that constant memory deallocation, garbage collection, and all that kind of bullshit. I want to avoid all that stuff, even if it's not going to be done often. I just want to have my guns in the scene. Basically, it's just cleaner and it's clearer. Also, you know what you have in the scene. You know what your player can have. If he finds a new weapon on the ground, he can pick it up. And yeah, well, not right now, but that's the idea. What else can I show you? So yeah, these are the only 2 scripts I have on my FPS controller. My main camera doesn't have anything. It's just a child of my FPS controller. It's completely empty. I mean, it only has a camera component, really. The hands root have a camera component too, but as I told you, it's set to depth only because it's going to clear essentially the buffer, and it's going to render the gun only. That's pretty much what it's going to do. And then we have our guns. So we have the first gun, we have the second gun, and we have the third gun. And yeah, the other 2 are deactivated. So you can see that if I activate one, it comes up. If I activate the melee one, it comes up. You see? I'm not going to do it now because they have animations that don't make sense and they would overlap with my first gun. And so this is roughly the main setup that I'm using. We've got a bit of a fall speed, so you can see that when I walk on this, we fall to the ground. So this is not standard so the character controller doesn't provide you with gravity. You just have to add it. So when you want to move the character controller, if you want to have that, you're just going to have to give it a bit of negative Y movement so that it does it, and you tune it up to the point where you think it's realistic. So I thought that this amount was, this amount of fall speed was kind of realistic, and it emulated gravity quite nicely. Yeah, so this is pretty much it. Yeah, so guys, thanks for watching. I'll keep you updated with the project, and I will continue to develop this first person character controller. And the idea, as I told you before, is to have a functioning inventory, being able to pick up weapons and drop other weapons, so a dynamic inventory. My plan is also to make it full body, as I told you, so actually put legs and yeah, render the body basically. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.